saying before, poor Tessa gets kidnapped by a warlock coven, and they are preparing her. They tell her to meet someone that they just called a magister, a mysterious figure that they intend for her to marry. And she is desperately trying to escape the prison that they are keeping her in. And she is hiding behind the door of her prison room with a porcelain jug, which is like her only piece of furniture, meaning to smash it over the head of the next person who comes in, which she expects to be either Mrs. Dark or Mrs. Black, one of her jailers. And I didn't name Mrs. Black after Holly, I promise. So, a noise behind Tessa made her whirl around. The knob of the bedroom door was turning, twisting back and forth, as if the person on the other side was having difficulty getting the door open. Mrs. Dark, she thought. Back to whip her until she was bloody. Back to take her to the magister. Hurrying across the room, she seized the porcelain jug from the washstand and scuttled behind the door. The knob turned, the door opened. In the dimness, all Tessa could see was shadows as someone stepped into the room. She lunged forward, swinging the jug with all her strength. The shadowy figure moved, quick as a whip, but not quite quick enough. The jug slammed into its outstretched arm before flying from her grasp to crash into the far wall. Broken crockery rained down on the floor as the figure yelled. The yell was undeniably a masculine one. So was the flood of cursing that followed. She backed away, then dashed for the door, but it had slammed shut, and tug as she would on the knob, again it wouldn't budge. Bright light blazed through the room as if the sun had risen, and she spun, blinking away the tears in her eyes, and stared. There was a boy standing in front of her. He couldn't have been much older than she was, 17, maybe 18. He was dressed in what looked like workman's clothes, frayed black jacket and trousers, tough-looking boots. He wore no waistcoat, and thick leather straps crisscrossed his waist and chest. Attached to the straps were weapons, daggers and folding knives and things that looked like blades made out of ice. In his right hand he held what looked like a sort of stone. It was shining, providing light in the room that had nearly blinded her. His other hand was bleeding where she had gashed the back of it with her pitcher. But that wasn't what had made her stare. He had the most beautiful face she'd ever seen. Tangled black hair and eyes like blue glass, high cheekbones, a full mouth, and long, thick lashes. He looked like every fictional hero she'd ever conjured up in her head, although she'd never imagined one of them cursing at her while shaking his bleeding hand in an accusing fashion. He seemed to realize she was staring at him because the cursing stopped. "You cut me," he said. His voice was pleasant, British, very ordinary. He looked at his hand with interest. It could be fatal. Tessa looked at him with wide eyes. "Are you the magister?" He tilted his hand to the side. Blood ran down it, spattering the floor. "Dear me, massive blood loss. Death could be imminent." "Are you the magister?" "Magister?" He looked surprised by her vehemence. "That means master in Latin, doesn't it?" Tessa was feeling increasingly as if she was trapped in a strange dream. "I think it does." "I've mastered many things in my life," he said. "Navigating the streets of London, speaking French without an accent, the Japanese art of flower arranging, lying at charades, concealing a highly intoxicated state, delighting young women with my charms." Tessa stared. "Alas," he went on, "no one has ever referred to me as the master. Or the magister either, more's the pity. Are you highly intoxicated at the moment?" Tessa meant the question seriously, but realized the moment the words were out of her mouth that she must sound rude, or worse, flirtatious. He seemed too steady on his feet to be drunk. She'd seen her brother drunk enough times to know the difference. Maybe he was merely insane. "How very direct, but I suppose all you Americans are, aren't you?" The boy looked amused. "Yes, your accent gives you away." "What's your name, then?" Tessa looked at him in disbelief. "What's my name? Don't you know it? You've come bursting in my room, scared me nearly to death, and now you demand to know my name. What's your name, and who are you?" "My name is Harrendale," the boy said cheerfully. "Will Harrendale. William Harrendale. But everybody calls me Will."